What is the project? The project is a service project where you can donate to our church, schools, churches right by our school, and you can donate on the first floor of 5th grade in our school. Why is it important to the
Are we ready? Okay. We are going to officially call to order the March 23rd Board of Directors meeting for WLA. You're getting a preview of our Zoom over there. And we'll start with roll call. So Natalie, sorry, I know you're working on that too, but when you have a second.
Okay, well, we'll just watch me on the screen as well. Shannon Kelly? Present. Jason Livingston?
Present.
Ryan Patrick?
Here.
Jovine Skordal? Here. Mandy Folks?
Here.
Julie O's?
Here.
Shelby Poole?
Here.
And Natalie Schoberg here.
Okay. We will start with reading our mission and vision, which is what we do at the beginning of every board meeting. So Jolene, would you read it for us tonight?
Sure. The mission of WLA is to utilize leadership-based programs and strategies grounded in solid research combined with the demonstrated success of core knowledge curriculum as a basis of a rigorous overall educational program that builds strong skills in math, reading, literature, writing, music, science, and technology. The vision of WLA is to be a school where students and graduates become exceptional leaders and are prepared to take on the academic and leadership challenges they will face in high school and beyond.
Okay. Item 3 on the agenda is approval of meeting agenda.
I would like to make a motion to add to the agenda removal of a board member. A vote for removal of board member?
Is there a second?
I'm sorry, to add.
Can you repeat?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to add an agenda item 6.2 for reviewing the removal of a board member.
I'll second that.
There's been a motion and a second to amend the agenda tonight to add 6.2 to the agenda, removal of a board member. Natalie, can you do a roll call vote?
Yes. Shannon Kelly?
So this is removing the agenda item.
Yes,
No.
just adding.
Add that as an agenda item.
To add removing.
Yes.
Okay.
So you're not saying yes, we're going to remove some, we're saying yes, we'll have that discussion.
Have the discussion. Thank you.
Yes.
Yes, then aye.
I'd like to have a discussion. Why was this proposed?
Would we discuss that at that point or now?
You know what, we can have a discussion before we.
So I was sent some information from the WLA Facebook group of a board member posting what
It's
I
not
feel.
a board member. It was my wife. It was signed by my wife, which is different because actually our board chair used to be the admin of that site.
Yep,
Our
and
board
that was
chair
just-
often conducted surveys, made comments, posts, and otherwise on that site. These were signed by my wife.
Okay. I didn't see a signature of anyone other than that it was your name on, like, it's posted as Ryan Patrick is posting this comment. So, and the Code of Ethics states that we would make no disparaging remarks in or out of Board of Director meetings about other members of the Board of Directors, administration, staff, or their opinions. It also states that we should focus on the good of the organization, not personal agenda. leading with leadership skills that are professional, ethical, and respectful of all individuals. I feel that that was violated.
So was that at a board of directors meeting?
No, it says in or out of board of director meetings. So out of would be.
My
on
wife
social.
is, her free speech is limited too.
Nope, not for her free speech is not limited, but your name was on it. We had a conversation at our last board meeting about
Okay.
not posting there.
Sorry about that.
So I'll continue.
Okay,
with
is there
the-
any further discussion? All right.
So Shannon Kelly,
So we're approving to add the agenda item to have a further conversation.
Right, that's
Okay.
what I was trying to.
Okay.
Thank you, that's what I was looking for. Yes, aye.
Yes.
Jason Livingston, Ryan Patrick,
No.
Jolene Scordoff,
Yes.
Mandy Oaks,
Yes.
Julie O's,
Yes.
Shelby Poole,
Yes.
Natalie Schoberg, yes.
I'd like to add an agenda item to discuss bullying, the administration's communication policy, roles and responsibilities and accountabilities. As well as, in that same vein, access to our board counsel, policy and procedure governing those processes, particularly when the board chair and executive director may be conflicted. As it may not be known to the board and the community, the executive director and the board chair are the only ones that have access to external counsel.
Is this part of your motion?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Is there a second?
I'd like to understand more about what specifically you're motioning.
Well, candidly, I'm quite surprised that there isn't an agenda item after all of the discussion that's happened on the Facebook page about bullying and these topics. The board chair was tagged in these posts, she's well aware of them, and chose not to add these to the agenda. A lot of these comments are about the administration and the board chair sweeping things under the rug. And in my view, not adding that as a specific agenda item is indicative of just that.
So is the motion you're making to discuss
I think
bullying?
we need to discuss two things. We need to discuss bullying. We also need to discuss the policies and procedures that are governing board access to our council and how that's handled. There was a board decision in 2017 in which the board chair was a voting member to restrict access to our board council to just the executive director and board chair. This was passed. There was no policy and procedure thereafter adapted to talk about things like a situation where there's a conflict of interest with the board chair and or the executive director in that communication stream, leaving it open to a situation whereby if the executive director and board chair are conflicted, they are still the ones that have the only access to discuss a topic that they might be conflicted on with our council. And they can choose to do this without inclusion of other board members present.
So I would recommend that if we're going to have that conversation, that be a policy conversation for the governance committee. And I would probably put that into governance committee hands, would be my recommendation on the policy.
I would also further that there is a policy for reporting complaints, that if you don't feel things are being handled, there is a policy to follow, and it's not.
And I'll point out that the policy is to report them to the board chair and the executive director.
Yep, and then it does say if there's a conflict of interest, that you may also write it in a complaint to the board of directors as a whole. So that is also in there. So it does say that if the complaint is about the executive director or the board chair, that you may then write to the board of directors as a whole.
And the board of directors as a whole is limited because they cannot speak to our external counsel. Only the board chair and the executive
If
director
a formal
can.
complaint were filed, what's to say that we couldn't all talk to our legal counsel?
As a board member, I needed to know in a specific situation where I'd learned about things that might have caused our executive director and board chair to potentially be in a misconduct claim area, whether I had a mandatory reporting responsibility to anyone, and I wanted to seek external counsel opinion on that. So what I was told essentially was that I need to have that communication go through the two individuals who might be conflicted and might have a misconduct
Understandable.
claim against them.
So
It's like going to if my CEO is embezzling, I need to go to my CEO and say, hey, are you embezzling? I need you
Right.
to talk to our council about your embezzlement, and then come back to me and tell me what you learned.
Isn't Volunteers of America another option?
Yeah.
Yes, they were informed as well.
So I agree with Jason that I think that is a policy issue that would be put to the policy committee.
here's my concern. Clearly, some things are going on that I'm not informed about right now, and it feels like we're kind of spiraling into a talk track that is probably better handled in another format.
It needs to be handled in a public format because there's been too many
which
things
is
done
fine
behind the scenes.
But I think I don't want to get down a rabbit hole where we're talking about specific situations that are not of board purview, for example.
Governance meetings are also public, so, that is a public format where concerns about policies and these things can be addressed publicly.
And if there is an issue with the policy, then I am all for modifying whatever policy that might be.
Agreed.
And if that's the case, then I would recommend that we tackle it in the correct order.
Okay, so I'll ask again, is there a second to this motion?
So just so that the community here and online is clear, the board has decided not to talk about adding an agenda item on board access and communication to our council, and not to add an agenda item on behavior, disciplinary actions, communication and conversation, which has been very, very rampant within our parent community.
So, Ryan, respectfully, I think that that's extremely broad. I'm trying to understand. It seems like there's some stuff.
We don't have enough information to have that discussion at this point. So I think there's maybe members who have information that not everybody has. So maybe, if we go to a governance committee meeting and have that information, then the governance committee can.
So I think that's the conversation we need to have, is what are the things that need to be done? So in my mind, it's a few things. We need to review our policies and procedures for behavior incidents and bullying
So
in the
governance.
policy. And we need to get very specific. So a RACI matrix would be something good for the board to consider. Who's responsible, who's accountable, who's informed, who's communicating along each of the steps. It's unclear to me why the board chair is copied on incident reports and why the board as a whole has received incident reports forwarded by the board chair. That should be something that is included in that policy and procedure about, again,
Hey,
who is
Ryan,
involved
we decided we're
and
not
why.
going to discuss this, so I'm going to ask you to stop at this time. So, thank you. Okay. We are going to move on to, I guess, we approved the amended agenda. Did we approve the amended agenda?
No, we approved a motion to add.
Okay, so let's, is there a motion to approve the amended agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the amended agenda.
Second.
All right, there's been a motion and a second to approve the amended agenda this evening. So we'll move on to item 3.2, which is approval of February 23rd meeting minutes.
So Mandy, do we need a vote?
Oh, yes. I'm sorry, you guys.
Does it require
Let's do a
call or
roll.
is it
It does not. All those in favor of approving the amended agenda tonight, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
I'm opposed.
Anyone abstain? All right, the motion passes. We'll move on to item 3.2, which is the approval of the February 23rd meeting minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the February 23rd meeting minutes.
I'll second.
There's been a motion and a second to approve the February 23rd meeting minutes. Is there any further discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions?
I wasn't there.
Yeah. Motion passes, thank you. Number 4, are there any conflicts of interest to declare this evening? Okay, thank you. Number 5 is public comment. There are no public comments signed up for this evening. Number 6, we're going to move on to something.
Did everyone in the audience that was here and wanted to comment see that sign-up sheet?
I did not.
Did you come in late? Okay, I'm just going to read some of the, how the public comment works. So, individuals, when you're addressing the board, indicate your name, your connection to the school, and the subject that you're addressing. You will have 2 minutes to address the board, and it's not a discussion or a debate with us, but we do take your information. We want to hear what you have to say, and then we will delegate your comments to someone, to the appropriate individual on the board to address. Individuals must not include names of school employees or titles or names of students in their remarks for their own legal protection and legal rights of staff and students. All right. Harry.
Hey, hi everyone. So, my son Krish is in grade 4 over here. And we have been in the school for 3 years, and we came here from Texas and we found things have been quite different over here, and especially in the past year or so, things have been a bit difficult. But Dr. Mortensen has been great because I've been speaking with her and trying to work with her, but still there's a long way to go.
Yeah.
So, some of the concerns which I've got are, first of all, there's a lot of bullying and physical violence going on over here. And we are not sure, the school is doing its best, but there's a lot of better things can be done in terms of being communications, and sometimes we just feel that the bullies just go off with a slap on the wrist and they keep on doing what they're doing. Also, over the past 2 years, I'm really sorry to say this, somebody's being offended, I'm sorry, but we just feel that we're getting discriminated against, and the school is biased to people of a certain background or a certain race or a certain religion. That's the perception I've been getting. So my son does something, he gets off with he has big consequences, but somebody else from a particular background, he has somebody slap on his wrist, and we are just asking for equality and the fair go in this. And also the other thing is, of late, a lot of property theft is going on. And if this is not nipped in the bud, the students will get a wrong message, and today it is nicking off from the lockers, tomorrow it will be shoplifting, tomorrow then will be home break-ins, and you know how this place is. Most of the people here have guns, and then things kind of sticky. And as a parent, I'm really worried for the kids' safety. Be it any kid, they're all my kids, so we just want everyone to be safe.
Yeah.
That's all.
Okay. Thank you, Harry. Thank you, Harry.
Thanks, Harry. I'm sorry that your child has experienced bullying here.
Liz Bauer.
I just stand up nice.
Prohibiting me from doing so?
You can stand, whatever you want to do, Liz.
Okay, sorry, I'm a
You're
little
fine.
nervous.
You're fine. I know,
Okay.
me too.
Okay.
It's okay.
My name is Liz Bauer. I have 2 students that attend WLA and have since kindergarten, 1 in 3rd, 1 in 5th. The first couple of years at WLA were good and we had no issues. As the school has grown with new students and staff, it's become more chaotic and disappointing to say the least.
Turn it off.
A couple years ago, my daughter was assaulted twice in one day by another student under the care of WLA staff. The first incident occurred on the playground where my daughter was pushed off the top of the playground equipment to the ground, just a short time after she underwent 2 brain surgeries. Sophia was to ride the day out in the nurse's office until I could get to work, or get there from work. As the day ended, All the office staff left for bus duty and left to do various tasks around the building. They left my child in the office unattended where the same student who had assaulted her on the playground came after her again. He grabbed a balloon pump in the office that was laying in the office and barricaded himself in the room next to the office with chairs against the handle of the door, threatening to kill and hurt my daughter. My student sat there helplessly screaming and crying hysterically in the corner of the door, covering her head and telling the other student not to hurt her. Never in a million years would I have thought my student would be held hostage and assaulted in the school that is supposed to be a safe learning environment. What I'm more disappointed is a lack of care, follow through, and communication, and having the proper safeguards in place. I should have been notified of this serious and traumatic incident. I didn't even receive one phone call from the school that this even occurred. My daughter was sent to YMCA care for a couple minutes until I arrived. The YMCA director at that time said, well, didn't they call you? There's an incident that had happened in the office. When I inquired to some of the office staff, they were less than vague and refused to provide any details from the incident that occurred. I did notify the police department and want to file a police report myself to investigate this further. I asked for a copy of the incident report, which WLA staff refused to provide. And I asked multiple times for a summary report in which the response was, this is with our legal team and can't provide any information. I then asked the Apira at WLA, who was the first person who attempted to rescue my daughter, and asked what specifically happened, and he said that a member of the office staff advised him not to speak to me about this incident, and he even felt that was not right and provided more details.
Your time is over.
What says that there's a time? I don't see that in our procedures.
It's posted here, right?
It's.
Can I get one extra minute to finish?
Finish your statement.
I said, I then had to hire my attorney to request a full copy of this report and incident, which they are obligated to provide if asked, and they had finally sent it upon my attorney's request. I'm ashamed that I had to go to such great lengths to receive this information. I can only conclude that based on my interactions, that they were trying to put no fault and ownership on themselves and have completely swept this under the rug. After the Woodbury Police Department investigated and interviewed all the WLA staff involved, everything that I've said today is true and accurate, and they actually wound up reaching out to the other child's family to get him additional help and resources. After this occurred, I asked WLA staff what additional safety measures would be put in place. I didn't receive any response, no call, no email was ever received from staff here. Another member also mentioned that they could bring in a contract counselor, which we said we'd like to proceed with. But again, no follow-up and no follow-through. So we wound up bringing to my child to an outside counselor at her own expense for months because she was too scared to go to school. This is one incident that will affect her family for quite some time. My kid's been bullied over and over again. Other examples where her hand was slammed in the door. All of her belongings have been thrown off her desk. They've been pushed, they've been made fun of. I had to pull her from the bus because people were making racial slurs and comments from her. Just this last year, a student picked on my daughter so much that she told a member of WLA staff that she wanted to kill herself. Never once did I receive any phone call from any teacher, any counselor, any director, anybody in the office about this. Again, this was completely ignored. Today I challenge student safety and I question whether or not we have the best leaders in place to keep our students safe. I'm tired of being ignored and I'm tired that WLA is not looking out for the best interests of the students and their safety. This has gone too far for far too long. So what will you do to make sure kids stay safe at WLA? When will you start being leaders yourself by fulfilling your promises and following through with your actions? How many more students and families get hurt, bullied, tormented, assaulted before you do something about it? And how many more police reports need to get filed? Only you guys can make the changes that will make a difference to keep our students safe.
Going to delegate responses to those.
I just want to acknowledge the courage of those who spoke this evening. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. And we will delegate your public comments. I think both of those are administrative issues, so we'll delegate those to you, Kathy. And I think we as a board have a strong responsibility to follow up and make sure that we work with her to get that handled.
Is there a mic that we can hear? I'm having trouble hearing everybody who has a mask or like lower voices.
Okay. You can hear me okay?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay,
But
I'll talk
if you're
louder.
online,
I'll talk louder.
you
I'll
know,
talk louder.
Even when I was online, that's why I came.
Okay.
The online, I can't hear it.
Okay, we do have a mic for the online here. Yes, but we'll move it closer. Okay. Okay, at this time, we are going to turn it over to grade 5.
I just want to note real quick that, because Jolene was tracking the time, it actually does not state in our policy that time is tracked.
Okay. Okay.
What policy number did you look under for board comment?
Public participation on the board.
Okay, we will have 5th grade's service learning presentation.
Grade team here at WLA, and we just kind of kicked off our food drive here at WLA, and I made a little video with Kitchen Bar class. Kind of give you a video of what's going on.
I think it's okay if Zoom doesn't see it. Is that what you're? Yeah, it's okay. Yeah.
What is the content? The content is served party where you can donate to our school's churches right by our school. And you can donate on the first floor of 5th grade in our school. Why is it important to know those people? It is important because we have so much food already. So it's important to share what we have. How does it feel to you? It feels great. It feels after getting a Christmas present.
Next time on George Shooting.
It's beautiful, right? What I like about it is that we give you an opportunity to have food because not everybody has food, and we waste a lot of food every single day, and I just feel like that if we give an opportunity to people to have kind of
Doing it, and we're trying to get to 500, so we're already at 193 today. So hopefully, we're doing it all the way until March 31st. They're doing a great job collecting, adding, promoting.
They've been going around to all of the kindergarten through 8th grade classrooms each morning to give their little spiel and take any donation that their classrooms may have.
Was it their idea to interview each other?
It was all right.
They nailed it.
And so often we donate during the holidays, but it's good in the spring and summertime when we don't think about that kind of stuff.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item 6.2, removal of a board officer. Is there a motion?
I would make a motion to remove Ryan Patrick from the board of directors.
I would like you to read and, or I will read.
Can I just interrupt?
No.
I would love, Ryan, if you were respectful while other board members were making motions and speaking. If you could wait till she finished her motion, I would appreciate that.
There's a motion to remove me and the board.
Madam Chairwoman, I would ask that We ask all members to be respectful.
I will ask for discussion in a minute. So there's been a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
There's been a motion and a second to remove Ryan Patrick from the board. Is there any further discussion?
Yes. Does the board even understand each board member what they are voting on and why?
I'd like to hear,
How about this? I will read what Shelby is referring to. Another parent had posted on the WLA Facebook site about bullying. So my wife posted this, and she signed it, and I have it in front of me. And I'd be happy to show it to each one of the board members. Since, and I won't say the name, and others have expressed dealing with bullying at WLA recently, I wanted to hear from other parents. First off, I am so sorry to hear these incidents that have involved your children. I know how hard these situations are to navigate and how painful they can be. I am interested to know how it has been handled by WLA. Have you all felt satisfied by the outcome? Do you feel safe sending your child back to school after it happened? Our son was bullied and physically assaulted yesterday inside of a classroom during school. He was shoved, choked, punched in the face 4 times. As a result, we needed medical intervention due to the facial bruising. Now his jaw also clicks when he opens and moves it, and had a bloody nose upon arriving home on the bus yesterday. This all happened in the classroom, where other students had to get involved in order to restrain the other child, as the teacher didn't realize this was happening. Bullying has been a large concern for ours this school year, with many, many notifications to admin from other smaller incidents, but we always received what felt to me like fluffy assurance and empty promises. Now I have an injured child, physically and emotionally, who will need to remain home the rest of the year, as he is not safe at school with the other child remaining there on site. I'm struggling to understand how children are getting away with this stuff at WLA and continuing to remain at our school, while in the end it feels extremely backwards as to who by default, example, my son and not the actual aggressor, is getting the short straw. I'll not be identifying anyone by name. If there's anything you would like to discuss, you can feel free to reach out. Signed, Caroline.
Do you mind just reading aloud again the board, what you had referenced
Yes.
before as well?
Yep. So where I'm coming from is that in the Board of Directors Code of Ethics, C3, make no disparaging remarks in or out of Board of Director meetings about other members of the Board of Directors, administration, staff, or their opinions. Also, under the Code of Ethics, E10, refer all complaints to the proper administrative representative or insist that they be presented in writing to the whole Board of Directors. E11, present any personal criticisms of employees to the Executive Director unless they involve the Executive Director, and then in such case may present to the Board Chair. E11, provide support for the Executive Director and employees of the school so they may perform their proper functions on a professional level. I would argue that tonight, one of our performance expectations is that we build awareness of and vigilance towards governance matters rather than management, and that we focus on the good of the organization and group and not on a personal agenda. So I believe that all of those things have been breached.
And so that says for the board member, correct?
Correct.
And so this was signed by my wife.
Did she sign every comment that was made under her name? Do you have access to that account? Could you have signed her? And there are so many things that, because your name is right there, that it's, I'm sorry, I don't remember, Caroline and Ryan Patrick. So to me, that's a representation of the opinion of both of you. And as a board member, encourage, it states in our job duties that we would encourage others to follow the chain of command.
So it was, to be clear, it was, and my wife is here, she's the one that posted it, and she'll tell you that she posted it.
I didn't type that up myself.
Maybe speak up so all the board can hear.
I did type that up myself. Ryan did not. He was at work still. It had nothing to do with him.
I would like to just, I don't know how this would work, but I'm not sure if the Facebook issues are the only issues that have occurred. And I've heard of other issues that have been breaching a lot of those pieces that have happened besides the Facebook comments. So I'm not sure how, because I might have information that other people don't have, how that should go about.
I was in that same bucket, and that's why I wanted to talk to our council, and I was denied that access.
How you were.
Because I have information that other board members don't have, discretions that other board members have potentially done, and I wanted to seek that counsel and that advice, and I was denied access to our council to do so.
You still have the right to seek your own external counsel based on your own.
Out of my pocket?
Well, if it's personal grievances.
It's not personal.
So it's related to your job as a board member?
Yes,
Not about your own child or your
Correct.
own specific situation?
correct.
Okay, and you've gone through all the channels that are labeled, like the governance committee, before bringing it here, just the standard process that things have gone through for?
It has
a
gone
board
through
member?
those processes with, and I'm not naming names, it has gone through those processes, all of the internal channels with the families that I learned. of
Let's
these
just,
things.
I will just say it, in this, so it's about me, and, so first of all, I just want to address that, first of all, the bullying story, yeah, okay.
Pause for a
Yep.
second, if that's okay, Mandy.
Yep.
I just want to call a point of order here. Do we have precedent for removing a board member? And my concern is that I want to ensure that all opinions are being appropriately expressed and heard, or all sides. And if, when I ask about precedent, I'm asking because, to me, it seems like this is incident related, and because there's maybe some crossover between board responsibility and personal responsibility here, I'm not personally aware of the details of what's going on. But at a surface level, I would say that I would probably not be in favor of removing any board member unless there's documented, evidence that a board member violated a policy, that we have, or if this was something that was not as, egregious as, immediately removed from the board type of thing. Is there a history or a documented history, I should say, not just a hearsay, but a documented history of behavior that would necessitate a vote to remove a board member?
And how, when do we all get that information to then make an informed decision?
And that's why I'm asking if this policy is defined. I'm sure it probably has never come up.
There is a law, and it states that resignation received verbally during a regular or special board meeting shall constitute a binding resignation. A board member may be removed at any time with cause by a majority vote. So as far as can we remove board members, yes. I don't know about historically if any have been.
There is a precedent.
Is there any, in the governance or judicial or policy or guidance, is there anything that garner or that outlines a procedure for an investigation into concerns or misconduct that would, similar to how when we go to a different committee and we say we want you to bring the board a recommendation because they've done a full investigation, whether that's finance related or facilities, is there something?
Yep.
Okay, so there is.
That is possible to do an investigation and bring the board recommendation.
Yeah, to me, it would feel much better, or I would feel better about making a decision to remove a board member if it was, okay, this is the situation report, this is what happened, this is where rules were broken, you know, that sort of thing, because I'm kind of coming into this, you know, at surface level, not knowing all of the potential history or details that are part of incidents. So in order for me to make an informed decision, I feel like it would be a better scenario to have, you know, an investigation maybe. I don't know. Whatever the case would be, I don't know how that's typically handled, but that's my personal take on it.
I would agree with that. I just don't know the whole process for doing that.
Okay. So I think the motion is still out there and has a second, so we will vote on this motion of removal, and if it passes, we have our answer. If it doesn't, then we can discuss how the board would like to proceed. So Natalie, why don't you do a roll call vote?
Shannon Kelly?
Just one more point of discussion. So because I feel like I should abstain from this vote, because as a community member of the board, who's not a part of any of the groups or privy to anything that's being discussed, I have no idea what we're talking about here. When you present something which is very clear with, you know, these are the concerns, that's all I have to go based on. And so I just don't feel, I would rather go to an investigation. So I'd like to abstain from the vote if that's possible. Is that possible?
How would that get motion?
Abstains count as which?
I think you'd want to vote no, Shannon.
Okay, then that makes sense.
Jason Livingston.
I'm in a similar situation, so I'm voting no.
Ryan Beck.
Does not get to vote.
He doesn't get to vote.
Renee Squirtle.
Yes.
Ann Combs.
Yes.
Julia.
Yes.
Shelby Poole. Natalie Schubert. Yes.
That's a majority vote, so the vote passes.
Do I get to say anything?
No.
Really, folks, you should be ashamed.
Damn it, Shane. You guys should investigate her.
Call to order. We're going to move on with our meeting.
Board chairs, child
Okay.
assaulted someone. Nothing was done.
Okay. Executive director report. Oh, actually, board report.
Well, let me just.
No, I'm gonna, no, I'm fine. They'll exit and I'm fine, okay. I just want to say that this has been a difficult couple of weeks for our school. And I want to thank all of you that have come tonight, regardless of what your position is. I want to, again, acknowledge those of you that spoke up. I want you to know that just because what happened just happened doesn't mean this board isn't going to take these comments seriously. But I don't think we could do it without all working together. We have to work together as a board and as a school to make this place better. You guys wouldn't have shown up tonight if you didn't believe in this school. And that's what we need you to do, okay?
We need to change, man.
Yes, I know, Samaya, yes. And we can commit to that, and we can, okay, I know, I have to ask you to stop though, but I agree with you, and we have to work together to do that. We cannot separate and divide, and we hear all of you, please keep coming, keep sharing, so that we can get better. We can't divide like this.
But when you share,
You can't
comment
talk.
anymore. You need to leave
can't.
or be quiet.
that's what happens when you share.
You need to leave or be
Okay.
quiet.
Thanks, Joey.
You're welcome.
Okay, so we are going to move on to strategic, I want to just mention that we are going through a strategic planning process. Bruce Miles is on the line, and we are going to get to his part in a minute, but I did just want to, for those of you that did pick up a packet earlier, in the back is all of the survey results from the parents, from the teachers, from the students, and I think you're going to be really excited to hear the types of things that he wants to say. I do want to just acknowledge that one of the key findings from parents that, again, as a board, we are going to, band together and work through and come up with ideas is the bullying. So, I'm sorry, on the last page, it says, bullying, there seems to be a significant issue with bullying among students. Bullying is not addressed properly. Despite repeated complaints, the same students keep bullying. So it is, we're not trying to push it under a rug and pretend like there is no issue, okay? We are committed as a board to figuring this out, and we're gonna work with our admin team to figure this out. That's all I have for my board report.
With the director's report, again, I would echo what Mandy has said. We're taking this very seriously. This is an opportunity for us to shine a light again through our policies, our procedures. The governance committee will be looking at bullying at the first meeting, which is early April, and it will be coming back to the board to discuss and make changes on improvements, whether it's zero tolerance. That will come out at the April board meeting. It will go back and forth several times, as I put in my parent memo earlier today, just to get people familiar with the processes. There is a process if you're not happy with the executive director, if you're not happy with the deans, if you're not happy with the teacher. And we will also be putting additional things in there to really make it clear. And I'm sorry, I'm rambling. I'm nervous like everyone else right now. It is unpleasant, but we do have to work together. We can't be attacking each other. It's just not going to work. We've made a lot of progress the last 5 years, as we all know. I'm not going to go through the list of everything we've been able to accomplish, but we wouldn't have accomplished it if we didn't have 5 things working together, and that's students that work hard, parents that partner with the staff, staff that works hard, the board that is stable, leadership, administration that is stable, and that work well together. We've made a lot of headway, and we're going to continue doing that. We've got a lot in front of us for the rest of this year. Some of it more pleasant, such as the expansion. Some of it less pleasant, as far as let's get this bullying addressed to a much better degree. It breaks my heart. It breaks anyone's heart in this room when a child gets hurt emotionally and physically. We all know that. One instance of bullying is too much. We get that. We're just going to have to be better at preventing it and addressing it. That's very clear. I am going to shortcut this. I would ask that Ms. Iwasco that we table her presentation until April, and then we can do that with Christina Burnett's English Language Learner Program. Alex, I know you rolled your eyes behind. I'm so sorry, but it's just, I just don't think that we as a group are going to be really receptive to all of the data and the hard work that you've done, but I do appreciate your preparation for it. We have been approved on the second page, you'll see, for a $500,000 line of credit with our bank. This is the second year. We did not need it last year, and we hopefully will not need it again this year. Human Resources, we're moving full steam ahead to hire a dean, a curriculum coordinator to replace our current curriculum coordinator, Kylie Griffith. An additional RTI, a response to intervention person, as well as a leadership teacher. Our 2 counselors that we hired this year have been leading our leadership class, which includes addressing bullying behavior, but we want to dedicate a teacher to that, budget allowing.
Kathy, what's the time frame on the curriculum leader, the
curriculum
Kylie's
coordinator
position?
What do you mean, what's the time?
When is she leaving? and
She's leaving
what's the
April
expected-
22nd, and we will fill that position. She'll be doing some of it from virtual.
Okay.
And then that will be filled starting July 1st with a new person.
Okay.
Kylie is committed to seeing us through the MCA testing and a lot of the wrap-up for this year to make sure that everything's well in place for the next person. Paula Krippner, our special education director, has the finance committee will review all of our SPED contracts for the coming year, so that will go to finance in early April. Parent-teacher conferences were held end of February, as you all know, and we had a terrific outpouring as usual. I think it was about 86%. Yep, 86% attendance. Another good news thing is Wolf Ridge. We have 43 sixth graders heading out Wednesday. 13 students will remain back online. 4 will be here in person. And 3 fifth graders will be piggybacking on that trip because they missed that reason due to COVID or another reason. Also in April, we will be having Andy Sharp at the board meeting. He prepares information each month telling me how many office discipline reports and bus referrals there have been, for instance. And we're able to see what grades are spiking. For instance, this month in March, there were 11 instances in 4th grade, 0 in 8th grade, 0 in 6th grade. And so far in March, it looks like there have been 4 total bus referrals. So he'll do an analysis of the year so far, so that will also, and I think that will go well with bullying, because he'll break that down into what was obscene language, or what was bullying activities, or what was theft, or what were these different things. So
I was
get a
just
good
gonna-
breakdown.
Thank you. I was just going to request that we
Really look at
get
it.
that detail and
Yep.
that data so that we can get a better idea of what's actually taking place, because obviously these are important issues.
Exactly.
And as a parent representative, it's very important to me too. So
Understood.
thank you.
Thank you. And that concludes my director's report.
Okay. We will move on to our financial director report. Bridget, I see that you're on Zoom, so we will turn it over to you. You know, we may have to turn you up a little bit, Bridget. I wonder if, hold on just a second, Bridget. Want to get you turned up.
Okay.
Can you hear her? Can you guys hear her okay?
There's a speaker on there.
Do you know how to do it, Jolene?
Usually I just plug it in and it comes on.
Oh, okay.
Can you just speak one more time for this?
Sure, yep. I still
Okay, we're gonna have to move this over there too.
Share screen first.
All participants. Okay, let's see. Good, okay. Okay. Oh boy. Oh boy. Okay, you're good.
Right.
There we go.
Can you hear me okay?
I think it's the best it's gonna be for now. I apologize that it can't be better.
Okay, I'll try to speak up. And don't be scared to cut in and ask questions if you have anything. So tonight, we will review the February financials, and the finance committee did review these last week. We had a meeting. So I will go over a high level. We'll start with this executive summary, which showing the revised budget, working budget, and actual ADNs that were reported in February, 635. The school's budgeted surplus is currently about 11,000, and the school is budgeting to spend at 36,000 out of the community service fund for the playground equipment. And that ends up with the projected cumulative fund balance for the school at the end of the year at 1.9 million, or 28% of expenses at fiscal year end. So a very healthy fund balance. We're projecting. Projected days of cash on hand was 98 for February, and that is well above the minimum covenants of 45 days. So as of the end of February, 67% of the year was complete. Cash balance was 1.8 million. There is a state aid receivable just showing that small negative amount, and we will keep monitoring that. It's that's not unusual as MDE finalizes their year-end reviews. Current year holdback, 276,000, and that
will be paid back to the school next fiscal year. Every year, NDE holds back 10% of state aids and it's paid back the following fiscal year. Revenues as of the end of February, 66%, and expenses, 62%. So again, very healthy. And there were working budget
Can I ask a
adjustments
question
made.
on the revenue and expenditures at 66 and 62% of what?
According to budget.
Okay, so of budget, got it,
So
thank
like
you.
normally we would say, you know, you have 100, the year is 100%, and how much through the year are you? Then you would look and see, if you want to spend 100% of your budget. and then
Right,
there's
and that's what I'm
9%.
asking,
So, yeah,
is it 66% for this month?
like
or-
as of this month in our fiscal year, that's where we're at.
Okay.
So how much through the year are we? We're like 67%.
67%.
Yeah,
Yep.
so that's just like a reasonableness check to make
Yep.
sure that our
No,
revenues
we're
are
actually doing better than expected.
Right.
Which is
Well-
what I'm trying to boil it down to.
Right.
Yes. We're on track. Yeah, good question. And once we get to the revenue and expense statement, you'll see that there are working budget adjustments that have been made, and we're continuing to make those. And we actually are meeting with Kathy on Friday to keep fine tuning. So we will have an update next month at the finance and board meeting. Probably will bring that revised budget actually to the board. So this is just our dashboard that shows the revenues and expenses, the budgets, just in a more graphical way to look at it. And this again shows year to date where we're at with the working budget, revenues and expenses. This is showing the budgets, what the revenue is made up of, primarily state revenues, and then the expenses. This shows fund balance history over the last 5 years. Current year financial trend of basically where we're at, revenues and expenses like we just discussed. So again, revenues are coming in a little bit higher than expenses so far through the end of February. A little bit of some enrollment information, and as I mentioned, we're sitting at that 635. And then just cash balance, the way to look at that would be on the graph. So this is our balance sheet, and I highlighted some of these numbers in the executive summary. I will point out that there are some salaries and wages payable here, and that is very typical because teachers are paid throughout the summer, but the fiscal year ends June 30th, so we accrue for those to keep those on our books, so it's not a shock come June with the extra expenses. Moving on, I'll make this a little bigger. This is our revenues, and again showing state revenues right now at 67% of budget, which is pretty much right on track. Federal revenues, those are reimbursed. So as we spend, we submit for reimbursement. So as the year goes on, we submit, and those revenues will increase to match the expenses. Local revenues, some of those were adjusted slightly based on where we're at throughout the year, what revenues we've received. And moving on to expenses, this again, we've made some adjustments and we will continue to fine tune these, but everything at this point is pretty much under, we're under budget. Like I said, we will keep adjusting. Some highlights, your salaries and benefits are 62% of budget and we're 67% into the year, so that's looking good. Then community service fund. This is showing that playground equipment, and you can see that expenses already hit. And then this is just a summary of all your funds, so your general fund and that community service fund. Right now, it's coming in at about $250,000 in the better, so hopefully that continues. We have it budgeted, of course. Like I said, the general fund was budgeted at about $11,000 in the black, and then we're dipping into that community service fund balance a little bit because there was a fund balance there. So overall, it's a negative 25, but your general fund is positive. And projected fund balance, 1.9 million, so again, very healthy. This is the cash flow projection, and this just kind of gives a nice big picture of, for the month, February, state aid payments that came in, so about 470,000 from the state, some other receipts, and then a little bit of that prior year holdback. So total revenue, 477,000, and then it's showing the expenditures, so your salaries, and then any invoices and benefits that were paid out. And then that ties back to your cash balance that was on the balance sheet. And then this is the contracting services detail. So this basically is just one line on that revenue and under the expense income statement. But this just breaks it down so you can see there's a lot of detail that goes into that line. And again, this is trending below, we're 67% of the way through the year. We've only spent 57% of the budget, so things are looking good there too. So that's the financial report. If there's any questions on that. If not, I will move on to the supplemental report. And this is, again, a nice full circle picture of expenses that went out. So these are the payments that went out in February. And again, if there are any line items here that you have questions on, we are happy to look into those and send you any extra information. So that was 410,000 expenses. This is a little same information, just a little bit more detailed on the expenses that went out. A little bit of a longer report here. Again, that total is at $410,000 there. Then this shows all the receipts that came in. So I mentioned this on that cash flow statement, the money or the revenues that came in. So the vast majority of it is coming from the state. Here you can see it. We get payments from the state twice a month on 15th and the 30th. And then there are some other revenues that we received, some interest and donations and whatnot. So there's that $477,000 in revenue that came in February. And this last report is a journal entry listing, and this will always net to zero. It's just if any items need to get moved between account codes internally. That concludes my report. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
I appreciate how you break it down. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Thanks, Bridget.
Thank you.
Okay, Jolene, Financial Director report.
Sure. We had our regularly scheduled finance committee meeting on Wednesday, March 16th at 4:30. It was a virtual meeting. At this meeting, we had Bridget review the financial statements that she did here. As you heard, we are very healthy in our financials, and we're back with all those normal limits. This is where we are in the school year. We also had a discussion about purchasing smart boards and cafeteria equipment. The request came from Mr. Roderick for those things. And we decided to table that agenda item until we could talk to Kathy a little bit more, but we did also talk about we felt there were funds available for that. We just needed to figure out where they would come from. And our meeting was adjourned at 5:15. Any questions in regards to the finance? All right, then I'd like to make a motion for the board to accept the finance committee meeting minutes and the February financials.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second to accept the March Finance Committee minutes and the February financials. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. All right, Governance Committee report, Natalie.
Yes, so we had our governance committee meeting on March 3rd because of spring break on Zoom at 4:30, and we had a jam-packed agenda because we missed our February meeting. So we reviewed 2 policies for their final review, and they're in your packet. Our field trips policy, and then development of parental involvement for policies for Title I programs. And Kathy reviewed those with us, and everything looked good as far as those were for second reading, so I'll be entering those in the second reading tonight. We also are going to start looking at some of our 700 series, so I'm going to enter those into first reading, and we're going to have Nancy review our 701 purchasing, procurement, and contracting policy, just to kind of move into those now that we're kind of moving into 800 and 700s. And then we did, kind of exciting, look at our uniform policy, 540, and we are exploring a PE uniform for older grades. It sounds like we are getting some feedback from Jolene and Ben, just kind of what's their vision for it, and it's looking like middle school, and so the governance committee is going to kind of look through what Jolene was thinking at our next meeting and kind of hash out some of those details with her. And then I did ask the PTO about exploring a plaid option for uniforms, just kind of seeing what interest is out there and what designs would, I don't know, go well with what we currently have. So that's exciting. And then we did discuss orange shirts, but tabled it.
I was the only one in favor. I'll just say
Tabled it
that.
for now.
For now.
We said we would come back to it. And then the staff transporting students off campus to their homes, that kind of was back to our field trip policy and just some things we had in there that we took out, and Kathy's just going to brief staff on that. That should basically never be happening. So, yeah, that's what our lively meeting was on. And then we adjourned at 5:30, so it was even a little quick. Any questions? No? All right. I have a couple things in the motion. I'll make a motion to accept the March Governance Committee minutes, enter policies 610 and 612.1 into second reading, and enter the 700 series policies into first reading.
All right, there's been a motion and a second to accept the March Governance Committee minutes, enter policies 610 and 612 into second reading, and enter 700 series policies into first reading. Is there any further discussion?
What was 700 series again? I'm sorry.
I don't know what all of them are, but the first one we'll be looking at is the purchasing, procurement, and contracting, more financial stuff.
Okay, is all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? All right, motion passes. All right, facilities committee report, Jason.
Yeah, so I was on vacation in Hawaii during the last facilities meeting. So Mandy actually led the meeting for me, and but I have had updates, so I can probably still do the overview. Gym is still on budget, as we see. Walls and roof are done. Other major milestones, there's cement in our gym. They're starting drywall. Drywall is pretty much complete on the third floor, moving down to the second floor. They're going to continue to work their way down. We're going through finalized plans for design of the courts, meaning, the color of lines, play areas, things like that. We've also discussed things like low voltage camera systems, or wiring for camera systems at least, sound, special lighting for the stages, things like that. All these are in play. Everything is on track right now, at least on track for our modified schedule. And other major items of note, it looks like the city is open to granting us the ability to start doing tours in May. However, we do need to provide them a plan, and it will be confined to certain parts of the building. But that is good for us, because that's one of the big things that we wanted the gym for, is for school tours and things like that. That's about it. Any questions around facilities at all right now?
Your original goal for tours was June, right?
Well, that's what they told us is June, and I said, and so did Kathy and everybody else. So it sounds like they're going to let us in early, and thanks to most likely Sean for talking to the city about that. Man, that guy's been so good to work with. I can't say enough good things about Sean. It's too bad he's not on the call right now. He could say that. But yeah, that's pretty much it on facilities and the big building that's going up next door.
Hold on, one more question. Do we
Yeah.
have like a security plan for that building? For the cameras, like you mentioned?
Well, so what we've discussed is cameras in areas that are not easily visible, like stairways,
Oh, okay.
Hallways, things like that. But generally speaking, it's something that we're looking at as kind of an after step. We can do that at any time, right? We're just trying to run low voltage wiring in the walls if we want to do that. But which is kind of silly to begin with, I think, because I mean, we can do everything wireless nowadays too. If we want, so.
You can buy them at Costco.
Yeah, so. Yeah, go ahead.
So when we designed the third floor there specifically, we have what will become eventually a principal or assistant principal or co-director or whatever the plan is. That person has a straight sight line to the stairwell that goes into a special education area as well as all these classrooms. In the opposite corner, we have a dean type of person office that comes with a straight view the other way, which is right on the restroom doors in that stairwell. And then all of the doors have windows right by all the classroom doors. So we really set it up for that, but there's still these pockets, stairwells, that are difficult to manage, as Shannon, I'm sure you're very aware of. But yeah, it's how much do you plan in there and how much is going to go in wireless.
Yeah, the other main items of note are we, discussed signage and what design we're going to want, not just for inside the building, but on the building and on the monument out by whatever road that is. So I think we got a pretty good design. We've still got a couple of things that we're finalizing on that, but it's going to be standard logo. It's not going to be anything, super fancy. So that's about it. Any other questions?
So you forgot in your director's report to, you had a spot for the mascot, which is gonna, facilities related, because it's gonna go on the gym floor.
Oh, yeah.
So, and we have to have it to them by March 31st. So, maybe Jolene could use this facilities bullet as an opportunity to show us her design.
I will allow it.
Okay. All right. So, Jolene.
Do you want to send them to me?
Yeah, I'd love Diane your input on this as well. So, okay.
I'm just going to connect to the Zoom meetings.
Okay.
And you'll have to mute or something, I think you have to do your.
Right. So yes, I can share that with.
It might be far enough away.
Maybe, yeah.
You'll probably just want to mute and turn off your speakers.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
Both.
Speakers on. Yeah.
Somebody has to let me.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Right. I'm going to mute just so it doesn't get weird.
And
Okay.
I should be allowed to share my screen, if that's okay?
I think you should be able to. Can you not?
Okay, if I know how to share, because the rec screen is the red. I need to wait a minute so I can find the correct
Yeah,
screen.
you're fine. And I'm gonna move this microphone. Oh, I don't know.
Oh, I did not know this was right next to me.
You would think this was my first rodeo at Zooming, but, Okay, I'll try now, I'm sorry. I think. Okay, I'm sharing that now, okay. I have it on my screen, but it's not there.
Oh, weird.
I'm not sharing the right thing. Let me share the right thing.
It's an owl.
No, I know, but I don't know if I'm sharing a Google link or a Smart Link or what link I'm sharing.
Where is it?
It's on this JPEG right here. It's right here.
Open it.
Open my JPEG.
Okay.
Yep, so that it's showing on your laptop.
Okay.
And then when you click on share, you should be able to see that in the options to share.
Yes. Thanks,
No,
Jason.
That's your mail.
I know, but it's right here.
Okay. Yeah, I meant like actually.
There it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
The one you decided on?
This is the one we redesigned it just a little bit, and this is the one that we decided on. I don't know how to give you a better view. Let me do this.
It's got to pass the
There it is. The W is off a little bit.
Ooh, very nice. Thank you.
There's a W there. There's a W there. Yeah. So we had him do some readjustments with just some of the lettering, but we used the same font as we had before. We included Luna, who is our mascot. I really like how we incorporated the established in. I think that's a nice touch that the designer came up with. So that is the design we'd like to have on the gym floor. I wanted to share as well, if I can.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Would the white space be the wood from the floor, or would it be white space?
It's a really good question.
Okay.
We have to look at our wood floor first, I think. I'm not sure if it's the true white floor or if it's more that yellow stain, so I guess I need to see the floor first before we decide if it's painted on
Right.
or stained on, or how we're gonna put that on the floor.
Because I know those, like, the yellow lines
Right.
won't show well
Right.
on a wood floor, just in
Yeah.
being in a million gyms in my life.
Right,
But
exactly.
you'll
So
have to make sure there's a,
we need to get together with our paint guy to see how will turn out there.
So what we will do is add that as a discussion topic to our facilities meeting for our next agenda
Sounds good.
to determine, how we want to cover that. Is that?
Yeah, so I'm just trying to think out loud. So, Ben, correct me if I'm wrong, in order to get things ordered and receive it timely, we need to have the order in by March 31st?
Yes, we have the design for the gym floor in by March 31st in order for our gym to be striped and painted in the timeline. that
Yeah.
we're given.
Then that won't work.
I know. So this is what I would maybe, as an alternative, suggest. You have a committee that's working with you to design the
Yeah.
floor, right?
We have a design committee.
Or even we could kind of let that construction, that 11:30 group kind of pick too. I feel like you need a group of people that's not confined to a board, vote, well, yeah, to figure out the details. I think generally speaking, as a board, go back to that one before.
Okay. This is Luna that we could use for logos, spiritware, so forth. So I wanted to just point out Luna as well, that we had her. Stuffies would be fabulous.
That'd be so great.
Is the gym floor going to be like the unveiling floor of the mascot and then the other things follow? Like
don't
spirit
know.
and stuff like, I don't know if that's not.
I don't know.
Wait, sorry, did that wrong.
So I think just as a board, it's kind of like, are you okay with this mascot? We'll find a way to figure out the details of how it will be on the gym floor and that the orange will show up. And so do any board members have any comments or issues with that mascot? Yes.
Just one random thing.
Yes.
Just to be like super
Yep.
high end. The Woodbury leadership is like close to our font, but it's not quite like our font doesn't have serifs on the bottom, like the W, so just comes to a point.
Yes.
So if they could make it exactly, it'd just be nice if, because I know we'll have little differences through everything, so as much as we can keep close, just to keep us looking really uniform and sharp.
And
If they can.
in reviewing gym lines and colors, we'll be having orange in there as well, so I really liked how that would have played off of this too. So,
No, I think she's talking about the font.
just the font.
Like not actually change the.
Oh, I thought
design.
it did.
See, like the bottom of the W on there has serifs.
What's this?
I don't know what that
There's
means.
those little bumps on the bottom of the W.
Okay, and ours doesn't,
So-
you're saying?
And it's not as thick a font.
Yep.
The kerning is a little off too. I know that's-
Only
that's
because
not
I
weird.
draw this on all.
This is why we have you on this committee, Diane. Yes. Do you see that?
Oh, yeah, I do.
Yep.
Like uniform.
If I can get back to our
I
designer
totally
to do
agree, but
that.
what I want to recommend is that we defer this decision
Yeah.
to be made by the committee.
Yeah.
And I would be, if they're not already delegated to make that decision, I would be in favor of voting them delegation authority.
Yeah, and who is on that committee? Jolene and Diane?
Ben,
And Ben?
and Jessica Erickson,
Do we need to vote on that?
Matea.
Do we need to make a motion to approve this or to delegate it, or are we just good?
Make a motion.
Okay, I'll make a motion to delegate approval of the final gym floor logo plan to the committee as identified.
I'll second that.
All right, there's been a motion and a second to delegate the finalization of the gym floor with the wonderful logo, Jillian, thank you, to the committee that you've designated.
Do we need to accept the facilities? Is that motion? or is
That's
that-
next.
Okay,
We'll do that.
so is there any further discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? All right, that motion passes.
Okay, if there's no other discussion regarding facilities, I will make a motion to accept the March facilities meeting minutes.
I'll second that.
There's been a motion and a second to accept the March facilities minutes. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Okay, is Bruce still on?
I don't know, he just signed off.
I
I don't know if he just got bumped out or something. Not usually.
Oh, me and Zoom don't get along.
Okay. You know what? I'm going to let you talk about the BOA annual conference while I follow up with Bruce.
Yeah. Bruce, just for the good of the group, Bruce was on with the Parliament of Owls at 4 o'clock today. We have a student council that we call the Parliament of Owls. And they were part of his survey, so he had his focus group with them. And he is in Georgia right now, and they were having storms, so he kept getting booted off in that meeting. So anyway, I'm not sure. However, let's go down to 7.2. The VOA annual conference is in June. I really enjoyed it last year.
Is it at the same location?
Same location, and it's midday. I think I have to be there the 13th. I'll get the exact dates, but it's the week of June 13th. We'd love to have board members. Last year we had, Jason was able to be there, Mandy, but any of you that would like to go and spend a couple, 2-3 days in Bemidji, there'll be board training opportunities. There's golf, there's very good eating. There's a lot of the people like Rashawn Construction, Baird, Financial Services, these people take you out on their pontoons and take you over to nice places to eat, and it's just really refreshing, and I really enjoyed networking with a huge variety of people. So if you are interested in participating in that, please let Mandy or I know. We do have money set aside for board development to take care of the costs of that for you. And
Kathy, can you remind where is it?
Bemidji. Yeah, it's on
And June,
it's the week of June 13th. I'm not sure which days. I know I have to be up there Monday.
I think when I looked at it, like Monday was golf.
Yeah.
But I don't think anything really started officially until Tuesday. Like there was like
Maybe
a
that
golf
was
night
it.
Maybe Monday night.
That's how it was last year.
And Jolene was there too
bring
last
some
year.
additional golf
Yeah.
players, otherwise Jolene's husband will walk away with it again.
I know. My husband's going to be there this year, Jolene. He's planning on golfing every day. So.
Good.
It's a nice time to get to know other, just to connect with other charter schools. This also has gone national, so we're expecting about 350 different charter schools, and there'll be some folks from other states that are going to be doing presentations there. And we have a favorite guy at MDE who's going to be there, who talks about how to get your school to become an online school, which might be in our future, we don't know, but I'm sorry, I'm rambling.
Oh, no.
Did you get a hold of Bruce?
No.
All right, let's keep rolling.
Maybe I'll try to call him.
Okay.
It was a really good conference. I learned a lot.
Yeah.
Some of the programs I went to were really great. I mean, really great. So
Yeah, I
if
agree.
you should go if you can.
Or like spend, I think Emily went last.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Are those people then still?
Yep. So there's lots of different strands: mental health, board governance, board finance.
Bruce, it's me.
Um,
I'm so sorry to keep you
This point, I was planning on it.
Yeah, and there's no limit. Well, we'd have to, I don't know how we do the quorum thing. We'll have to figure that out. But it was really nice.
Okay. Bruce is gonna log in, and maybe Ben, could you help us to see if we get the volume up on that TV?
I'm wondering if it's because it's plugged into that little box. All the volume's going to the box and not to Natalie's computer.
We tested it before, so
Play the video.
I don't know, why would it be different?
You could do the ICT update too, or not.
Okay, I'm gonna do the ICT update while they're getting that going. So, ICT update, things are really kind of slowing down on the ICT front, which is exactly how we want it to be with the, pandemic kind of hopefully ending soon. And so we made mass optional in mid-March, and it seems like it's gone well. We haven't had any case of COVID since, so that's been wonderful. We have been meeting bi-weekly rather than weekly, just there's a little less to discuss these days. He's calling real quick. Do you want to get that? Oh, maybe not. Can you talk? And so we will continue to meet, I think, bi-weekly for a while, and then, eventually I think that we'll dissolve, because I don't know that there'll be a whole other reason to continue to meet. I don't know. Do you guys have any questions for ICT? We meet every Thursday, or every other Thursday. So if you do have things you want brought to ITT, let me know.
So we haven't had any confirmed cases of COVID since spring break or before spring break or anything?
I don't know.
Not that have been brought to my attention or put on the board.
Yeah.
So Mandy, is that something you think that we would go to dissolve before the next school year, or
Yeah.
spring?
I mean, I hope so.
Mandy,
Yeah.
can you resend the link to him?
Yes. Yes.
And I might have missed this, but like the current things is just still, if you test positive, you quarantine for 5 days. No, there's no like close contact requirements or anything anymore, right, for students?
Right.
So, correct.
I would add for ICT that at the next ICT meeting, we'll be talking about allowing parents to come in, have lunch with their children again, start having parent volunteers and so forth. So as soon as that clears through the ICT, we can get back to even more normal. Water fountains are working. Those staff noticed that right away.
Yeah, they are. They're on.
We turned ours on today too.
Oh, you did.
Oh, that's great.
Little by little, things coming back. Yeah. So I'm going to move on to elections committee. We have board elections every year. We have a parent seat, a community member seat, and a teacher seat, expiring each year. And so this year, Jason's seat is up, Jolene's seat is up, and our community member is the one that's an open seat right now. So we need an elections committee to handle the elections process, pick the dates, get the information out. So I'm appealing to board members to see who might want to be on the elections committee.
Who did it last year?
Me.
Jolene
2 years.
Oh,
and Nancy?
Yes.
Can you just tell me briefly what that means?
So, a couple of years ago, when the pandemic first started, I can't remember, through a training or something, I found out about an online elections that could be done. So actually, it's very easy to do. Either Nancy or whoever is assisting us in the office at that time helps upload all of our stakeholders' email addresses to get them the information out, and everybody just votes online. There's no paper forms, there's no organizing anything, physically. So it's actually very painless.
it really is.
Yeah. It's pretty easy.
Is it just like one meeting to discuss it, or like what is the time?
I think we probably met once a month up until the election, just to make sure we had our ducks in a row. And this online provider we use, they pretty much walk you through everything, and Nancy now will understand and know how to do it all. So it would be pretty much just overseeing that situation.
I will be on that.
All right, Natalie.
So would it just be me and Nancy?
Did I hear some interest from Shannon?
I mean, you know that I would love to participate with this. It's just my schedule
Well, I think you can meet virtually.
For sure.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what works best.
All right,
Okay.
so I'm hearing Natalie and Shannon and Nancy.
And then you said Nancy will kind of know what that
Yep.
schedule looks like.
Exactly. Yep. And I will give you access to the elections file that has all the details too, so.
And Natalie, kind of as board secretary, I'll kind of put you chairing it. So you can kick it off, get it started, and Shannon and Nancy can help. Okay, it looks like Bruce is on. So I'm going to move this one more time. Can you guys help me just shift that around?
Are you able to hear Mandy when she's talking over there?
Oh, you can. Okay, good.
So you'll just need to unmute, and we should be all able to hopefully okay.
Thanks. Video, audio from across the room is a little tough. How's my audio for everybody there? Is it okay?
Better.
Yes, sounds good.
All right, great, thanks. Can you make me a co-host, Mandy, so I can share a doc?
Yes, you should be able to, but I will just make you co-host so that it's easy.
There it is, it's live, thank you. Well, thanks, everybody. Good evening, hope things are going well. I want to share with you the material that we used with the student session today, the same material we will use with the employee session Monday and the parent session next Thursday. Everybody should have access to this PDF packet. The first page identifies logistics and contents. I'm going to take a minute and work you through 3 sets of survey results, and it'll be brief, but then we can talk a little bit about questions after. We had 24 staff that went to the survey and answered 4 questions. What 2 or 3 things are working well? What 2 or 3 things need more attention or need to be improved? Questions 1 and 2, if you have anything that's bold with a dark bullet, that's a trend. That showed up more often than anything else in the survey within these 24 people. Again, they said teachers and staff, communication and family support. When we asked the employees what needed improvement, they said competitive pay, teachers could use more support, and they have some curricular things they've identified. We asked the employees to give us some thoughts about vision, and you can see what those 24 people thought. These are the trends. These aren't the onesie-twosie answers. But under each one of the dark trends, we pasted in a couple of sample bullets so you can see what people had to say. And then we asked what kind of programs, activities, and facilities and services might we have. When you get down a little further into the survey, into pages 4 and 5, we had really robust participation with your community. We asked what's working well, and they said the same thing, teachers and staff, communication. Your community believes that your curriculum is it's moving along, so there's a little discrepancy there between community perception and staff perception. It's not a huge problem, it's just something you want to notice. Community said we need to improve lunch, communication from WLA overall, and bullying, which we've heard about this evening. We asked the vision question of the community. They would see a high school expansion, extracurriculars and sports. They see sports clubs, band and music, and lunch shows up again. We then had 145 students run through the same 4 questions. Teacher and staff, curriculum, and friendships. Lunch, playground, and activities. What was interesting to me under where do you see WLA in 5 years, they were very, very, very clear that it should be, in their mind, the best school, or within the top 10. And then we asked the programs, activities, facilities question again of them. When survey results came back, we are unable to see who sent them. We use a form called Constant Contact. The material comes back. Every response is listed as anonymous. And I realize, you guys, it's not all balloons and seashells every day based on some of the things I've heard here. You've got some things you're working on, but I want to let you know one thing that's interesting from my perspective. I do about 50 of these surveys a year. because every time that we go into work with an organization in strategic planning, it's really helpful to know what people are thinking on the front end. And despite a lot of pain, obviously, that I heard about this evening, people were very professional and emotionally balanced in their responses. I will occasionally get responses from other organizations where they say, you know, I wouldn't stop for so-and-so in a crosswalk, you know, or so-and-so is Satan and they're messing the place up. And, you know, under the thin cover of anonymity online, people can really go off a little bit. And you had people that clearly wanted to tell you what was working, and they clearly want some improvements, but they identified the improvements professionally and in a very balanced manner. There wasn't blaming, you know, there wasn't name calling or yelling or accusations. It was just a very professional, here's what needs to be fixed, which I view as really healthy. The other examples that I gave you, those are places where it's really coming unglued. Now, obviously, you've got some things to work on, and bullying to me is of a much higher priority than a hot lunch, don't get me wrong. But I just want to tell you that your responses were gratifying in that way. May I answer any questions from anybody about the survey process or the results?
Are the number of responses typical?
Yeah, in a perfect world, we would have had more from staff, but we'll obviously meet with them on Monday and get their feedback live. Your community numbers were great, your student numbers were small, and I thought those were pretty good.
So just to clarify the timeline, then you had the student meeting tonight, is that correct?
That is.
Okay, and then we're still doing the staff and the parent ones, okay.
For the students, I showed them samples of visions to let them sort of see what it was. You know, it's kind of an aspirational piece. And then I showed some sample priorities, you know, operational items. The group, we broke them up virtually and gave them links to go on to Google. And they were in small groups of 3. We had 12 students show up. And so those 12 students were broken up into 4 groups. And each group said, you know, based on what we think, what we see in the surveys, here's our thoughts about what ought to be in the vision. And here are our thoughts about what ought to be priorities. Then that was turned into a Google survey, and the students are filling that out as we speak. So all the students will benefit from the ideas brought up by the 12, and they'll help prioritize all the different things, not only under the vision, but under priorities. We use the same format for employees. After they finish, we'll put all of their items from the Google Sheets into a survey, and staff can start to check and tell us which ones are most important. We'll do the same thing with community next Thursday evening. So each group will have about a week to fill out their survey, and then I'll be able to bring you a pretty big packet. It'll have, you know, all the things you've seen here, as well as all the results online. After the groups met live, generated their list, and then sent that out for more feedback. I mean, I'm excited about the process, frankly, because your students did a great job. They really just dove right in, and power went out for me, and Natalie had to close the thing out, and Kathy, it sounds like it went all right.
I have one question on the student sample, since it's so small and they were volunteers and it's not truly a random sample.
Right.
How valid are the results?
The students were student parliament representatives, correct?
For the focus group, but.
Okay, so the survey went to all students grades 5 through 8. So there were 145 students, actually they had the highest turnout of any of the group. So 145 students filled out the survey to get this information.
Okay, gotcha.
That we're
And
looking
the
at
12
right now.
is
And then-
focus group.
So there's
Gotcha.
a survey and then there's a listening session. The listening session.
You know, I'm sorry I caused confusion. That original survey, you know, to sort of start to find out, you know, from an eagle eye view what people are thinking, that helped. The students tonight then put together a much more specific list, then that'll go out to your entire student base for voting. So in reality, students will have had 2 surveys, employees will have had 2 surveys, as well as the community and parents. Thanks, sorry about the confusion there. Thanks, Mandy.
Bruce, I have a question. it might be just not one that was on people's minds, but it doesn't look like there was support or suggestions of having a pre-K program. And when it comes to strategic planning, is that something then that the board discusses separately, even if there isn't stakeholder support for that? Or is that just something that we put off the table?
I think staff.
Great question. The board has what I call executive privilege, right? If the board thinks the place needs a new roof and other people don't, the board, I think, is probably going to go down the new roof road. And occasionally the board has to look into items that other people may not believe are of value. But board's elected to have a lot of information and a good viewpoint. Kathy, we're actually going to close out the final session on the 28th of April with an exercise where we put things into 3 columns. What we've learned from planning that's incredibly important that we're taking on tomorrow morning is the first column. The second column is where you identify things that you're not ready to commit to doing yet, but you need a lot more information about them before you would even start to dive into it. And the third column is interesting stuff that came up that we're just not sure what to do with as of today. I think that's a perfect place for pre-K services to go. There were some people that said it ought to be there, but it wasn't a trend, right? But if the board, with executive, we also have to make sure everybody understands that all the feedback you're getting is advisory. The board makes the final decision. So the board does not have to be in unbelievably perfect parallel harmony with these pre-results. The pre-results are supposed to get the board thinking. And a perfect example is saying, you know, pre-K didn't come up. Now, is that something that we should be looking into in depth right now? Is it something we want to keep on the radar? Or is it just something we don't want to forget about? I think that's exactly the function of a board. Long answer to a short question, but does that make sense?
Yep.
Can I just say something that I've noticed, and I know we're all looking at the same things, but since the student population is, I guess, who we're serving the most out of all of these, and they had the biggest turnout, I just think it's really great to see that the things they think are going well are teachers and staff, curriculum, and friendships, because I feel like those are the 3 pillars that you want students to feel good about at school. And just in the lens of tonight and you know, bullying, for the things that need more attention, at least students aren't saying, you know, this isn't the biggest thing that students are seeing as something that needs to be improvement. And I know the parents have stuff, and even the teacher side of things, like support for teachers, you can kind of balance that with, you know, high needs students and maybe some reasons for staff to need some more support. But I think the student survey results is something really good to see, or I felt good seeing those things come through.
In doing this for 23 years, I've never had a student survey say, you know, making friends. That's pretty powerful to me. On the flip side is, you know, that the pain that people go through with bullying is almost unconscionable. And so if the students if they've not identified bullying to a great degree, then you've really got an educational moment coming up.
Mm-hmm.
I thought your results were awfully healthy for all 3 groups. That's just my take. Again, nobody felt that it was the right place to throw somebody a zinger, you know, throw a rock through a window. So that was pretty healthy. Any other questions about the surveys, the results, or the process?
Would you mind helping lead us through discussion? We had one last month of just who should participate in which the listening sessions, if anyone, or how that should, what board members, you know, roles will be in that.
Well, Kathy, you and Mandy, I think, did a great job today by sort of kicking off the session, explaining to students why it's important, explaining why they're being listened to, and then saying, we'll be standing over here. It's totally your call. Should you both want to sort of stay in the background and watch and listen as the small groups break out on Monday and Thursday, great. If you'd prefer to say out loud, you know, if it'll help move the conversation along, if we're not even in the room, we'll take. I mean, I think you just use your own best judgment, but you have to, you know, explain to people either why you're there or why you're not there. I mean, somebody will be unhappy either way, it doesn't matter. But I think that you guys are part of things going forward, and it's not like you're gonna walk over to each group and tell them what to do and we break them out into small groups. I think your presence is appreciated as you kickstart it.
Okay, so as you say that, the virtual sessions coming up are both virtual, right?
One more time?
The sessions coming up are both virtual?
Yes.
Okay, so you'll be putting them into like separate chat rooms?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so I think that's fine for Kathy and I. We can kick it off and then exit. What about other board members? Like with the
If board
teachers?
members, it might be a tad cumbersome, but if you'd also like to say, hey, we're glad you're doing this, you know, I don't think that'll, I mean, what are people going to say? Oh, yeah, thanks for coming. But then give them room to do their work and slide out of there.
Yeah, I don't think I was even invited to focus group.
So I'm hearing.
I think I was either.
Yeah. I think our question was more so, should like staff, like myself as a teacher, attend the staff focus group as a staff member, not a board member? But it sounds like more so we should have our board member, you know, hat on for this process. More
One
so.
of the most difficult things in the charter world, I think, is having a foot in each camp for people that serve on the board. But, you know, you wouldn't have been elected if people didn't think you knew when to put on which hat.
Okay.
And so, you know, for you to say out loud, hey, everybody, I'm sitting here as a teacher because I teach or I do this, I think that's legit. I would want your voice heard at that session. If you're not comfortable with it politically, I think that's okay too, but just make sure people understand that you're choosing not to be there as opposed to just not attending.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else we can touch on this evening?
I don't think so. We're really excited. We're excited for this process. I know it's.
I am too. The results have been good so far. Board members and audience members, Kathy and Mandy have my cell number. If you have any questions that come up to you later on, please feel free to give me a call and I'd be happy to answer them for you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. Thanks, Bruce.
Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay.
Do you want me to just end the Zoom?
Okay, so, board communications, future agenda items, and reflection.
I'd like to say that by the next meeting, the board would like to have policies that are brought to governance committee, the bullying policy and access to the lawyer, so that you can expect those for first reading at the April meeting.
I want to emphasize my support for that. I also want to potentially talk about reviewing communication policies. That was one of the things that came up, not just in the surveys, but in conversations here. When are we communicating and what is the triggers for communication, that sort of thing. I'm sure we have a policy, but I think we should review the policy to ensure that it is matching what we want and need. And I do realize that some of that lies in the administration's hands. You have your internal employee policy type of thing versus board policy. But I still would like to make sure that we're reviewing those. And I made a note of some other things. So number one is for me the communication. The second is reviewing the bullying and what our discipline policies are. Because I personally haven't had a need to engulf myself in the process or what the policy is at this point in time, thankfully. But it sounds like I'm not, I might be one of the only ones in that spot. So I want to know that our policies around discipline are defined and not ad hoc. Is it a one strike, two strike scenario? What do we have in place today? Does it fit the needs of our school, right? So something along those lines would be good. Access to legal, you already mentioned. I think that we should, understand what the procedure is for that. If it is, if there is a need, if there's a potential conflict, whatever the case might be, how do we address it? And the reason we make these policies is to address these sorts of things so there aren't ambiguities,
Yeah.
there aren't gray areas that cause conflict, right? So, it's kind of doing just a review to make sure that we've got some of these things in place. And again, some of these might be administration policies versus or
Well, lawyer access would be
Yeah.
the board, because it's,
But, and the last thing is, I want to have a better understanding of the process for removing a board member. Because to me, that was a little bit, that
Yep.
I would have preferred that we had an opportunity to understand what the full situation was and understand that, an investigation or, some sort of a written reprimand or something had been in place prior to calling for a vote. I would have felt a lot better about that. So I think that we should look at what that process is going forward as well. And if it's not defined, I think we should define it. So that's it for me.
So all of those will be addressed at the governance?
I think it starts there.
I just want to make sure I took notes on that. All of
Yes.
them.
Yeah.
okay, anyone else? Okay. The next regularly scheduled board of directors meeting will be Wednesday, April 27th, 5:30, same place, same time. And is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Maybe a
Second.
There's been a motion and a second to adjourn. Is there any further discussion? All right, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? All right, motion passes. Thank you all.